Okay, we should be recording. Right, let's go live on Facebook. Let's get that up here. Confessions of a failed raw feeder. Okay, shared to page. Cats. Vicky Marshall from Hug Food. Okie dokie. Right, I'm going to hit go live. Lovely. Here we go. Let's get it up on Facebook on my phone. Let's see. Okay. Look at that, bang on 7:30. Right. Great, we are live. Let's get it on my phone so I can see the comments. Let me get back to here, being live streamed. Brilliant, we are live on Facebook. Congratulations, technology, you worked for us today. So good evening, everyone. Hello. Drop a comment to let me know if you can hear us okay and that the sound's all working. And let us know that you're here. So I would very much like to introduce my special guest this evening. This is our first live of 2022, and I think we're kicking off with an absolutely awesome topic. So our live tonight is Confessions of a Failed Raw Feeder. So myself and Vicky are both raw feeders, and we're both animal mums, and we are pro-raw. However, we have both faced challenges, and we have had a very bumpy journey when it comes to getting to where we are. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So as we're going through the live, if you've got questions about anything that we talk about, or if you need support, feel free to pop it in the comments, because we're here to help share our story with you all, but also to give you guys some support as well. So let me get the bio up for Vicky. So I asked Vicky for a couple of lines as a bio, and this is what she shared with me. So I've loved cats for as long as I can remember. My first cat, Poppy, a rescued tortoiseshell, came into my life when I was about 7 years old. As an adult mum, I prided myself on feeding the best scientific formulated dry food that the vet recommended, and then a shocked emoji. Then I began to learn about feeding real fresh food. I started my first raw dog food company in 2009 after adopting my first dog, Rudy Doodle. Awesome name. A year later, after a panicked phone call from a raw feeding cat breeder, her raw food supply had closed down without notice. Vicky added a cat-friendly selection of raw recipes to the dog food business. So in 2020, she launched Hug Pet Food with over 12 years of fresh pet food experience. And she set about basically creating a range of foods to suit all tastes, all preferences, all ages. But there was one thing in common, which was basically honest to goodness quality ingredients. So Vicky from Hug, welcome. And thank you for coming and joining us live tonight.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled to be here.
It is going to be an absolutely awesome session. So we've talked about the fact that you are from Hug, that you created Hug. I'm going to get to that a little bit later. I want to just come back a little bit, and I want you to share with people, if you wouldn't mind, how did you get into cats? Why? Because I know Hug came from dogs, but we've just been talking when we were checking the tech about you and cats. So share with everybody your love of cats and where that's come from.
Oh, I think probably instilled within me from my parents and my grandparents. We were completely cat people, and we joked, that even when I was a teenager, I had a big blown up picture of Poppy, my cat, on the wall, and lots of kitten photographs next to Adamant, and then wham. Okay, so this is how important cats were in my life. Adamant, Andrew Ridgely, Poppy, my cat. She was up there. They were the most important people in my life. So, it was a natural thing. I adored her. She lived till she was 19 years old. When I left home, the first thing I did was get a cat called Sophie, and she lived till she was about 17 as well, which was wonderful. So cats really featured from early days right through. And as I say, interestingly, you know, I did the shock horror face about, you know, feeding them science diet and what have you, but in those days, I wasn't a trained nutritionist. I was working in finance. So, you know, I loved my cats and I would do anything for them. So, you know, when the vet says, here is a beautiful formulated scientific diet for your cat, it is the best. And let's face it, it was expensive. This is what you should feed. So then that's exactly what I did. Little dry pellets of science diet formulated for me because I am not worthy. How on earth would I know how to feed my cat? And she is the most precious person in my family. And that's always been the same. Even when the kids came along, it's always been cats, dogs, children, husband. Yeah, and it's just accepted. That's exactly where we are, you know. So, you know, you ultimately do the best for them because they can't tell you how they feel, because they can't tell you what they want. You're on your toes all the time. So, you know, unfortunately we moved house. We moved to a lovely country spot, country road, bendy road, and I lost my cats. They got run over. So that was the reason we then got our first dog. And from there, I started to actually investigate what I was going to feed him, because there was just such a choice of dog food. And sort of stumbled upon raw feeding, did some reading, and it sort of snowballed from there. But interestingly, even having been a cat mum far, far longer than I was a dog mum, it didn't occur to me, even when I started, you know, accidentally started a dog food business, it wasn't a plan, that cats would need the same, you know, because I think I was still had that experience of owning cats and you know, having the confidence taken away from me because I am not worthy. I don't know what they need to eat, therefore, and it's important that they eat regularly, and as we know, so the pressure is on with a cat, really. And, you know, and they have certain likes and dislikes, and you go, hallelujah, thank goodness they like this food this week and they eat. You know, it doesn't matter what happens next week, but, you know, you are kept on your toes. And there are real reasons why cats do that. They're not trying to be difficult or, you know, force their way to be number one in your household. You know, there are absolute reasons why that happens. So, you know, it wasn't until this wonderful Maine Coon breeder actually called me up literally one Saturday and said, look, you do dog food. I feed raw, my cats thrive on it. You know, can you produce a cat food? So I immediately got hold of the vet that sort of I worked with in terms of formulating our diets, and we created a raw food that was appropriate to feed to cats. And cats being obligate carnivores, you know, it was pretty much, you know, all meat, 10% bone, no veg, and in a range of flavors. Ensuring, you know, things like offal was in there, taurine. I was learning about taurine. I was learning about, you know, why cats have to eat regularly, and sort of started my journey again, if you like, in terms of understanding cat nutrition. You know, but it's a bumpy road, and now, you know, we're talking sort of 10 years on, and we're learning all the time, and I still don't understand why there's less information for cat parents than there is for dog parents when it comes to nutrition and feeding. I don't understand why, or maybe I do understand why there's such a lot of poor quality food, because I think maybe, you know, those that sort of big processed food companies that are developing food have got some tips and tricks to help, you know, make a cat almost become addicted to the food that they produce. And because we're so grateful to find a food that our cat enjoys and will eat, you know, we hope that it's, you know, and we trust that it's the right thing to do. So I think there's a real combination of, you know, the pressure we put on ourselves, the information we're given, the lack of information we're given, the lack of choice we're given. So, you know, when it came to having the opportunity to revisit, I guess is what I've done with Hug. I've revisited the opportunity of feeding a natural diet, and part of my focus on offering a choice and trying to understand more about what's required is getting my rescue dog So I had my old dog who's still alive, and if you hear any gentle snoring in the background, it is him.
I was just thinking, I hadn't mentioned about the snoring, so I was waiting for it to kick in, and then I was going to say to people, by the way, I was meant to tell you at the start that if you hear a noise, it's the dog snoring.
Oh, he's woken up, he's just licking his paws. But I've got a 55-kilo Labradoodle, 13-year-old Labradoodle laid about one side, and a fussy 20-kilo Labradoodle laid to this side. So the snoring isn't me, and there's no one else in the room. But interestingly, the reason why we sort of came across this title, wasn't it, of Confessions of a Feral Feeder. I had a raw feeding business. I fed thousands of dogs and cats, and I get a rescue dog and he refuses to eat raw. And
let me just pause you there. So Susie's commented and said, you said about the order of things. She said, of course, this is the order of things. My husband tells everyone how he's below the guinea pigs, but above the slugs.
Yeah.
So before you go into the bit about the dog, I just want to pause you there, because I feel like we could I could sit here captivated with you telling your story. Before you tell about the dog and get onto the raw bit, I just want you to share with people, how did you feel when you were uncovering this information? So about cats. So I asked that question because for me, Pickle, the cat that inspired Naturally Cats, she was diabetic, and when she came to us, she was underweight, so we free fed dry food because that's what she'd come to us with from the rescue center. And I thought I was loving her the most by giving her access to food all the time because she was underweight. When she was diagnosed as diabetic, obviously my world came crashing down, but also I then had to go on an education piece myself because we couldn't get her diabetes stable. Of course we couldn't. She was still on sugar-coated dry food. And then I found out about dry food, about ingredient labels. I found out about carnivores and cats, and basically I had, and probably still to this day, had a phenomenal amount of guilt because I felt bad for what I was doing with her. I felt bad about what I was feeding her. And I just wondered if you could share with people, how did you feel when you were going on your education and when you were learning about natural feeding? How did it make you think about what you'd done with your cats before?
I think in your heart of hearts, at that moment in time, you did the absolute best for your cat. Okay. And I know I thought about it, I followed advice, and at that moment in time, I did my best. Where I started to get really cross was where was actually the opportunity of choice. Where was someone saying to me, this is what your cat needs to eat, and here are the choices. There were no choices. It was, here's a bag, and actually it says science diet, or it says,
prescription diet.
Or you think about what food do you see advertised on the telly? Go cat, and the cat's loving life, and it's a dry box of food. And what you start to do is you start to get cross, actually, because you've been hoodwinked. Because actually, what is motivating all of these people is this. It's not about the center of your universe, your cat that you would do anything for. The top of the list of important things in your life is your pet, and that absolutely is how it should be. And I felt duped, and I felt just really let down. I think really let down. And the fact that people, you hear people talking about big pharma, and you hear people talking about but actually, because these are animals that can't ask you for what they want. Fletcher might ask for a biscuit, but they can't explain what it is they want. Our only opportunity is to turn to a vet, or hopefully a dog food or cat food creator, in the hope that they are motivated by the same things that you are. And I think it's almost like the veil drops from your eyes, and you go, oh my God, actually they don't care what I feed my cat, as long as it's their cat food.
It's one of those things, isn't it, whether like your expression, the veil drops, and when this information, you can't go backwards. Now I just want to share with people, we're not talking here tonight about raw food, saying that raw food is the only way, raw food is the best way, we're also, although we are saying about dry food, and Vicky and I are sharing our experience about it and how it's made us feel, what we've learned, we're going to talk a bit later on about dry food and how we've had to deal with it. So, you know, when Leo was in the vets and the first thing he ate was a plate of dry food, you know, one thing we want to get across to you all tonight is that we're sharing our journeys with you. But as Vicky said, you do the best you can in each moment. And this moment now will be different. You know, the information that you have will be different to what you knew a week ago, an hour ago, a month ago, you know. So be kind to yourself, ladies and gentlemen, you know, so that you are doing, and know that you are doing the best you can when it comes to nutrition for your furry friends. You know, no, like you said to me before, no one sets out to be a bad cat mum or dad. You know, we're all trying to do our best. So let's go forward a little bit and tell us about Hug. Tell us about, you know, why did you create your own brand? Why did you create your own dog food?
Because no one was doing anything to the quality that I expected or wanted to feed my dog. And, you know, what became apparent was the motivation of profit. Now, any business has to make a profit, otherwise it's not commercially viable. However, you know, I think people want choice. And I think that's what I always hoped to give them. So if I fed something that I've always fed the food that I've made. You know, so any one of my customers knows that the food they're feeding their dog or cat is the food I'm feeding my dog, or I'm giving my best friend is feeding her cat, or what have you. That is an absolute promise. And I've sourced it from the people that I trust. And I believe in the whole circle of life. And I believe that the welfare of the animal that goes into my dog food is as important as the welfare of my animal or my customers' animals as well. And that for me is incredibly important. And I think we do the best we can. But what I wanted to do, and this was a really important thing, and this is part of where tonight's subject about being a failed raw feeder came from, is that, you know, historically it was all about raw, okay, and that's what you had to strive for. That is the best, the cleanest diet. There are good and bad diets in every type of food. Let's just make a point about that. There are some dreadful raw diets, and that just like there are some dreadful dry diets, but there are also, you know, if you go down a moist route, there are good and bad moist diets, and it's about just looking at some of those important things. But with Hug, and with the arrival of my rescue dog, who walked away from a beautiful, fresh, free-range chicken breast and would rather have a cuddle and a cheese sandwich, taught me an awful lot, you know. And it's like, well, hang on a minute, if you don't eat this raw, I haven't got anything else that I'm comfortable with to feed you. The next best thing is something pretty highly processed, you know, and I don't know what's gone in it. And I damn well know the quality of the meat in it isn't as good as I want to feed. And I don't want to support commercial farming. I want to support the farmers that are doing it what I believe is properly, and that supports the environment as well. So for me, there was this huge gaping hole. And actually, for whatever reason, as much as a properly formulated quality raw diet, I believe, is the cleanest way of feeding your cat, sometimes it just ain't going to happen.
Nope.
You know, and actually, cats aren't little dogs. Cats are absolutely different. They absolutely demand difference, not just in terms of the ingredients, but in terms of understanding how they eat, why they choose what they do, why they behave what they do. And we need a toolkit, if you like.
Very much.
And you know, it's no good stressing out. I've brought raw food, you will eat raw food, I'm flogging myself, I'm stressed, the cat's picking up on the stress, no one's eating anything, you know, and then we don't know where we're going. It's about going, right, these are the things that are important to me. I'm going to work really hard to get to this point, but actually I'm going to listen to my cat as well, because there are reasons why. And I had to listen to Fletcher, because there was no way on earth, you know, I've been on my knees trying to spoon feed a dog, you know. This is I've also, with a dog, well, if you're not going to eat your dinner, then don't.
They can fast, can't they? Whereas cats can't do that in any way, shape or form.
24 hours, you've got maybe 48 hours to play with your dog. And a lot of smaller dogs will fast naturally. They don't want to eat every day. But you haven't got that tool in your kit with a cat, you know? And actually you've got the opposite. You've got a lot of cats want to eat a small amount of super fresh food regularly, you know, and that's a hell of a pressure. So actually, you know, the minute you put that foot on, the clock's ticking, and if you're stressed, you know, or you haven't got a choice, it's a really, really tricky one. So what I'm trying to achieve with Hug is giving you some items for your toolkit. So not only do I produce a food that is you can feed raw, you can also cook it. Because actually some cats, again, a lot of it's a texture thing. They don't want to eat it raw, but actually if you cook it, it goes a little bit harder, a little bit, you know, the texture changes. They prefer that texture. Also, and for many reasons, right reasons, some people aren't comfortable feeding bone. Now with dogs, again, it's easier to feed bone. With cats, there are more issues. Quite often you can't get bone minced small enough in the commercial product. I know a number of stories where bone has got caught in between a cat or kitten's teeth or in a gum, and it's caused an infection. You know, the cats are more likely to get constipated if the bone balance isn't right. You know, there's so many issues that add to that complication. We take the bone out. We use a beautiful natural calcium. So again, what we're trying to do is make it as easy as possible and a choice to go, okay, this is something I'm going to try, you know. And that's all you can do. And actually it gives you a starting point. And we all know that, you know, transitioning a cat to a raw diet, and I know people that have had 2 cats in the same household, one's gone, great, give it to me now, I'm eating it straight away. The other one has taken 12 weeks and literally half a teaspoon at a time mixed in, and you've moved on from there. You know, and if that's okay, and that's your goal, and you're comfortable, and you're going on that journey, and that's what you do, that's brilliant. If it's a case of I can't cope with this, I'll try cooking it, and the cat eats it cooked. Great.
There is something around, you know, people understanding their own limits as well. So I just want to pause you there for a second, because there's a couple of points you've mentioned that I just want to kind of flesh out a little bit. So, you know, when you said about transitioning, and you mentioned before that every cat is unique, you know, I've had a client who I mentioned about, oh, let's look into a raw diet. You know, 3 weeks later, I had a call with them, and they're like, oh yeah, the cats are on it. I'm like, what do you mean the cats are on it? They're like, they absolutely love it. They've gone straight to it. They're eating it every meal. We've not had any issue. And I'm like, oh my God, it took me 5 months to get Leo to even sniff a little bit of raw, you know, because I was determined after dealing with Pickle and all the diabetes and stuff that, you know, we would get Leo to some form of raw. You know, we would definitely get him off dry, because he came to us from the rescue on mixture of dry and wet. But it took us a while. And after, you know, 12 months, 18 months, he wouldn't eat, you know. And this wasn't last August, this was a different time. We put wet food down, he snarfled a lot, and I'm like, right, okay. So we had to take a step back. You know, I if you ask my husband, I am not a patient person, but when it comes to my fur babies, I will have every single ounce of patience needed. You know, I was committed to getting him to have a better diet. And the thing is, because I could read the labels, and like you said about knowing, you know, understanding the quality of the meat that goes into some of the products, it was hard in my head to feed him what I deemed to be a lesser quality food. But equally, I had to read what he, you know, I had to listen to what he was telling me. So, you know, last August, he didn't eat. It didn't eat for 6 days. We've got a question, and I'll share that in just a second, Bob. He didn't eat for 6 days, you know, and when he did, he was in the vets for 4 nights. The first meal he ate was a plate of dry food. Now, it broke my heart. I was elated, and I was terrified at the same time. Absolutely. So part of me, you know, I wept with relief, because thank God he's eaten. My baby's not going to die, basically, was the thought that went through my head. And then that split second later, it was, oh crap, why was it dry food? You know, how bad is that for him?
What haven't I given him that he's looking for? That's the other thing.
Exactly.
It's immediate guilt on you. What could I have done wrong? Why is he asking for this? You know, and there's no rhyme or reason.
No, and do you know what I have to say? Naturally Cats community were amazing. They were so supportive, but people were sharing with me thoughts that I'd never even conceived of. They said to me, you know, at least he's eaten and it doesn't matter. And sometimes you want a piece of cake, and you know, sometimes you want crappy food. And I was like, do you know what, you're right. And it taught me about, you know, compassion for myself. And I think, you know, when we're dealing with our cats, whether they are taking to raw or a different wet food, because, you know, this isn't just about getting them onto raw, but if you're improving their diet quality and it takes a while and you feel like you're taking one step forward and two steps back, it's okay. You know, as Vicky said, be kind to yourself, and our stress levels we've got to be aware of. So, you know, I held my cat chakra workshop last night. We were talking all about energy and our emotional state, you know, what we give off is just as important as what we're putting on the floor in front of them.
I can second guess if I speak to a potential customer on the phone. I can second guess whether that customer is going to be successful or not, because if they get on the phone and they are highly stressed and they're explaining all the issues they've had and they're explaining everything they've tried, and I can feel that emotion. I know damn well that they're going to ring up to you and go, wouldn't work. Yeah. And I'm just going, and immediately all your heart does is go out for that poor animal that's trying to survive in that environment. So, you know, as stressful as it can be, it is a case of taking a step back, you know, and your whole issue with the cat hadn't eaten for 6 days and it goes for a bowl of dry food. Well, if it was a week, that's a massive sugar hit of energy in that bowl. Never thought of that. You know, raw is a slow release, you know, but actually if he's suddenly his appetite's coming back, he needs
never even thought of
that massive boost, and that's exactly what a dry food does. Is it gives you that, because it's full of carbohydrate, it gives them that spike of you know, energy, and that probably just kick-started him again. Just like, you know, when you're exhausted, you look for a particular type of food, and you know, I'm exactly, but I'm a huge coffee in the morning. I'm a huge believer, you know, that you listen to your body. And I think one of our biggest faults is, because we happen to be the cat mum, we think we know best, and we stop listening and we stop being guided by our animals. You know, they've been cats have been domesticated for like over 7,000 years was when they started coming in and catching mice in grain stores and what have you. Right? And so surely to goodness, we should trust them just a little bit to understand what it is they want. You know, and we know cats are the independent being. They will do what they want to do. If they want to sit on your lap, they'll sit on your lap. If they want to go and sit on the windowsill and ignore you, that's exactly what they're going to do. You know, and if you've been out all day and they didn't want you out all day, you damn well know it. You know, and it is all of that. And I think we have to trust them as well, rather than, oh God, the cat's not eating chicken now, go on, have a chicken. Actually, cats, because they are lone, you know, predators, if you like, they have to look after themselves. They need sometimes to keep that diet changing, because they're looking for just something else in the food. That's a great point. So that's a great segue into one of our questions. Let me just bring that up. So we put a post out and I asked for questions, and we've got a couple. One of them was, you just mentioned about, you know, if you've put something down for a cat and doesn't eat it, are they looking for like variety, or, you know, are they looking for something else? One of the questions that we had was, my cat eats rabbit at the moment. I've tried her with raw turkey and duck, but she refuses it. Do cats need a balanced diet? So when I read that question, I thought it was really interesting, because there are, in my experience, two schools of thoughts when it comes to proteins for cats. So one of which is, you know, feed them what they'll eat, that's it, and the other is, you know, you need to give varied proteins. One, because it varies the nutrients, and two, because it if you feed them a single protein, it can kind of set them up for a food intolerance. But I know, as we've said, cats can be sensitive to change and sensitive to eating. So what would be your answer to that question? It's all about context, really. So you know, if you're feeding a complete, balanced, fresh, best you can do diet, and the cat is enjoying that and eating it, be guided by the cat. You know, I mean, it's one of the reasons why we mix our proteins in some of our foods, so that we're trying to sneak in that second protein, if you like. But we know damn well there's some cats that it's not about that. It's about, I want pork. And actually, what you actually then need to be comfortable with is the fact that as long as you can trust this is a complete and balanced, a complete diet. Now, complete and balanced, again, is two different things. If you were doing a homemade raw diet, okay, so if you were doing it yourself, then what you don't have to do is beat yourself up that every element in that cat's bowl creates one complete balanced food. Okay, because what you might do is feed some, some sort of muscle meat and a little bit of psyllium husk, there's a little bit of roughage in there, perhaps a few sort of, flax seeds and things. And then actually in the next meal, you might add some fish oil, some egg, a bit of liver. So what you're doing is over a period of maybe 2 or 3 days, your cat, it's getting a base level of taurine and some of those critical things, but overall, it's called balance over time. So that's something actually that you would, if you were doing it yourself, that's what you could be aiming for, because you are never going to, unless you're buying in umpteen supplements and then you don't know where they've been sourced from and what have you, you're never going to create a full nutritionally complete and balanced meal in one bowl. And that's fine, as long as you, and that's where variety becomes important. If you're buying a food which is completely balanced, absolutely balanced and complete, then actually you can trust, as long as it's a company you can trust and the quality is there, what have you, you can trust that there is everything in that food. Now, the reason we go with fresh is we all know as things are cooked or processed, the nutritional value goes down. Now, so companies will tick a box by sticking in a supplement, but if the quality of that supplement isn't good, isn't food derived, for example, then it's not a bioavailable supplement, so the body doesn't recognize it. And that's then the balance. So that's when things, there's a difference between it all fits, FEDIAF guidelines, tick a box, of supplements are in there, but it's all artificial supplementation. And the cat's body doesn't recognize that. It's like us. If we, if I take a vitamin, I take a food derived vitamin because I want my body to recognize what it is. If it's synthetic, there's a chance that all my body's gonna do is pass it straight out. I don't know what this is, let's get rid of it. Doesn't recognize it, doesn't utilize it. So there's a whole question about, so that's what I mean about context. It's about bioavailability, it's about quality, it's about whether you're trying to do it yourself. And if your cat will only eat pork, fresh raw pork, complete cat food, and that's what they love, and that's fine. The only protein where there is an issue is rabbit. And if you are only feeding rabbit and you're doing it yourself, rabbit is missing an essential amino acid. So it's as a meat on its own. So if you're feeding rabbit, it's always better to, if you can, even if you can put maybe a little bit of lamb liver with it, or it's just to try and bring another protein in somehow. Now think of it sometimes as transitioning. So just like it takes you, like you say, 5 months to transition your cat to a raw diet, it might take 5 months to introduce a second protein, as long as it's not an allergy thing, So what you're doing is, it's like, okay, I've got them onto raw food, great, they love pork, great, I'd really love to get another protein in there, maybe a red meat, because that's sort of a bit of yin and yang in terms of white and red. So what you might start to do is mix in a little tiny bit of beef, and then you increase that mix, and then suddenly you've got a little bit of variety. But ultimately, it's this tick box of what's important, and it's about most important. It's then about, okay, let's look at quality, variety,
and food, and actually food going into the cat. I'm very aware that getting food in, that's the first tick in the box, right? Regardless of what it is, getting it in is the first tick in the box. And I think, there's also a cost element as well. We're all trying the best we can. Susie's just put a question about, what about lamb? Dog feeders say there isn't a lot of taurine in rabbit or lamb.
It is about, lamb is fine, actually. It's rabbit, which is, if you're feeding just rabbit, that's an issue over a long period of time. Okay. If you're feeding rabbit for a week, or your cat's been ill and all it'll eat is rabbit for 3 weeks, it's not too much of an issue. The taurine's there. It's not taurine as the amino acid that's missing. It's that full sort of mix. The other thing I just wanted to quickly add while I thought of it, the other really nice thing to do is, if your cat is, if you for your lifestyle, for your your cat says whatever it is, you're feeding this type of food, try offering, even if it's just for the cat to chew, a wing.
So just before you say that, the question, that was my next question. Bob says, what are the thoughts on whole prey for cats? So I think you're gonna kind of cover that in there. So go for it.
And again, we like to give ideas to people on what they can, because
go for it.
Even if the cat doesn't eat the whole prey, doesn't eat the bone, that whole action of chewing meat from the bone is really cleaning the teeth. And we know that your sort of general health actually starts with a healthy mouth.
Yeah.
Okay. So keeping the teeth clean is really, really important. So again, you know, if I was talking to my vet, who was he was wonderful, wonderful homeopathic vet, so huge, you know, raw feeding enthusiast, he would give his cat a beautiful bit of salmon on the bone. Now, his cat didn't eat the bone, but thoroughly enjoyed just pulling the salmon off of it. And that action,
go on.
So that action clean teeth. With chicken wing tips, necks. Chicken necks are quite good, but you know, as with dogs, don't leave your cat alone while they're eating. Obviously, you just, and so you know, it's about their preference, your comfort. But there's things like that you can just do that once a week. I've got time at the weekend to spend a bit more time thinking about it. I'm gonna offer a chicken neck, or I brought a chicken with the giblets. I'm gonna give the neck to the cat to chew, or we're gonna have a bit of salmon tonight. I bought him some salmon to. That's wonderful in itself. You know.
Bob says that Louis loves baby chicks, eats a lot. I think, and I think that's fabulous. And like you said, the humans have got to be comfortable as well. You know, there is a relationship here. There is, you know, what is best for the cat is one element. What they want, what they will do, what they will tolerate, what they will accept in terms of change. We've got to think about. We've also got to think about what we're comfortable with. So I never forget, I take a retreat twice a year, and time before last, there were two gorgeous cats there, called Nala, actually, funny enough, and Louis. And Nala was outside. I was on the balcony because I have the apartment at the top, and I could hear this god awful yowling. I'm like, what is that? Where is this cat in pain? I'll help, you know, super cat mum to the rescue. And I look down over the balcony, she's on the floor and she's playing with a mouse, and she's like doing the whole cat thing, right, to beat it to and fro to make sure obviously it's dead, beat it to and fro. And I'm like, oh, bless her, you know, our Leo catches mice, you know, some dead, some alive. So that wasn't uncomfortable for me. And then I went to go back in and I heard this crunch. And I couldn't help myself, but I flew back out onto the balcony, looked down, and basically spent about 4 minutes in complete awe watching Nala eat this mouse. So she crunched the skull, the head, all of it. It was literally like, this was the mouse. It was bite, 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 all completely gone, apart from, well, because when she, of course, being the cat mum that I am, when she'd left, I went down and had a look at the little pile of what was on the floor. Yeah, no, I couldn't help myself. And I put a picture on social media. I think it was 12 months ago. There was a lung and a kidney. That's all that was left, right? So she'd eaten every single thing else, every piece of fur, you know, all of it. And there was a tiny little lung and a tiny little kidney. And I'm like, isn't that fascinating? You know, absolutely fascinating.
If you can feed your cat a whole raw chick, fantastic. That is a perfect little parcel of a meal, because what you've got is the feather is the roughage they need. You've got the meat in the bone, so you've got all the fresh meat, you've got the taurine, you've got the calcium in the bone, and actually also in that we try and replicate prey by topping our food off with a little bit of flax and chia seed, because again, the vet that I worked with years ago said if your cat was wild and caught a mouse or a bird, what is in the stomach of that mouse or bird? It's seed.
Digested,
So what we're trying to do also, I mean, we add psyllium husk as well, because we need that bit of extra fibre, and we're not obviously putting
because you can't put feathers and fur in it, can you?
No. Well, interestingly, most pet foods, a lot of poor quality pet foods do, and they call it chicken protein, but it's actually chicken feather. Believe that's the God honest truth. Wow. So it does go in there, but it goes in as protein, not as roughage. So So absolutely, you know, what we're trying to do is replicate what that chick, which is brilliant, is doing, or that mouse is doing. And I must admit, with mine, when I used to sort of pick over the remains, because they would always catch birds. I mean, it broke my heart catching birds, I have to say.
Yeah.
But I always put a bell on their collar, and I always like to think, well, if the bird was caught and there was a bell on the collar, there must be something wrong with the bird. It must have been on its last legs. Made me feel a little bit better. That's why that was the way I'm justified.
That was your logic. That's
yeah. If there's a bell on the collar, the bird can hear the cat coming. It must be falling. The cat's just put it out of its misery. You know, but there would often be a leg, a bird leg. I'd often find a bit of the wing, which is more feather and no meat. And with mice, it tended to be like the wiggly intestine bit, fine wiggly. You know, so
isn't it funny? I find it so fascinating that each cat is different and will do different things. So my dad has woken up from his cats to like half a mouse, and sometimes it's the top half, sometimes it's the bottom half. You know, Leo brings in mice, dead or alive, and he doesn't eat them. And that I do find like that's really hard, because I'm like, buddy, you know, exactly, that is a waste. So if you know, I know you're a carnivore, it's our choice to let you outside, you know. If you're going to catch it and it's a circle of life,
don't play with it, eat it.
Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, it's just a shame.
I wonder what would happen if you just popped it in the freezer, because you want to keep it fresh. It might have been that the mouse wasn't well. You don't know.
No, I never thought of that.
Because remember, cats, going back, cats are solitary creatures. What they have to eat has to be super fresh. Okay. It might be that he didn't eat it because, as I say, because the mouse was ill. It might be, you know, for all sorts of reasons. But there would be something about it that, you know.
Wait till I tell my husband that I've got to put a dead mouse in the freezer.
But then, as I say, I wouldn't, because if he chose not to eat it, one would, again, it's about trusting your cat's instinct, you know, and that's the issue. That's why they can be finicky and fussy, you know, because they are used to looking after themselves.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at
I'm waiting to hear what it was.
I'm laughing at the comment because Bob said, appreciate your reply, and a thumbs up and a love little face, and he put he's still not kissing me after eating the chick though, and a laughy sideways face.
Coward. I say coward.
I noticed Dee Dee's put a question twice. We were on a different topic, but I would come back to it. Dee Dee said, I heard salmon is a very contaminant fish.
Well, what you have to be careful with fish is thinking about tuna is an issue because of mercury. So you just, again, it's about quality. It's just about thinking about, you know, where the amount of food you feed. So don't, if you were feeding salmon all the time, but yes, there are issues with our sea fish, unfortunately, that there is, you know, contamination. You have the bottom fish feeders. So it's, you know, it goes back to moderation. You know,
and quality, you know, cost and availability,
you know, and that side of things. So again, you look at farmed versus wild, but you know, it's all of those things, and it's about moderation as well. You know, so that's what it goes back to.
No, I completely agree. I mean, at the end of the day, sad as it is, our food chain, whether you're talking about broccoli or beef and everything in between, you know, there are contaminants now to preserve crops, to deal with, you know, animal health. And we need to think about what we put into our bodies. You know, we can only do so much. So unless you're going to go out and you're going to, you know, find the animals for your cat to eat, you know, we have to not necessarily make compromises, but we've got to make informed decisions, you know. So if you want to feed salmon, can you get hold of organic rather than farmed? You know, it's about making that kind of that choice with what you can get your hands on, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you know, if your cat is an outdoor cat, then they are going to go and source some of the grasses and some of the seeds and things or fruits that maybe they are looking for at a point when they need it. You know, so some people will say add a little bit of catnip or something to food sometime. I mean, it just depends, or just make sure there is certain things it's like the diatomaceous earth and things like that you can have for dogs, and it's just trying to give. Quite often, you know, just like we joked about it before, we know when we feel the need for something. You know, when I fundamentally believe when I was pregnant, and I craved something, it was because I was lacking in it. And
Agreed.
I think that real sort of drive to find something is what our animals are used to doing all of the time, you know.
And we've stopped them doing it, haven't we, because we're keeping them indoors.
And sometimes if we go wholeheartedly down the route, you know, we can unbalance things, you know. It's this whole omega-3 omega-6 balancing of oils, you know. If we just slug loads of oil on, or you know, you feed an oily fish in an oil, then you're completely unbalancing your omega-3 and omega-6. If you feed an oily fish in spring water, you're feeding your cat with, you know, the actual the fish itself, which will be balanced. It's all of those things. And then, you know, and again, we can wind ourselves up to distraction, and we can beat ourselves up that we haven't got it right. So again, go back to moderation, go back to just taking a step at a time, and go, actually anything which is a bit more natural, or the cat enjoys. It's like, you know, some people say my cat doesn't drink. We know cats don't drink. They, you know, they come from the African deserts, you know, they don't have a thirst drive. They won't drink out of that bowl, but they'll drink out of a dripping tap. Yes, of course they will, because running water is healthier than still water. You know, so it's when we stop and think, and that's half the issue, is in our lives we very often don't have time to stop and think. You know, and when you stop and think it through, you go, well, actually, that makes a lot of sense. I could have learned a bit about that. And it is that, it's just having that, just pausing sometimes and just having a little think.
Pausing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Love it. No, I completely agree. And I think, you know, also it comes back to what we said right at the beginning. Every cat is an individual, you know, every cat likes different things, will do different things. You know, the way little Leo is completely different to how Pickle was, and he will be different to all the other cats that, you know, from the people that come and join us. So like you said, do what you can, listen to your cat, and offer, you know, educate yourself. You know, I mean, that's for me, I think, is a big piece where, you know, don't trust one information source. You know, if you want to make a decision for your cat, find sources of information, for example, like people or companies or brands that you trust, but never stop learning. You know, with Pickle, when she was poorly, you know, we went through the diabetes thing, then I did healing, then I did botanical remedies, you know, and I brought that back to Leo. So like down the floor here, I've got a little dish of spirulina, you know, downstairs in the dining room, much to my husband's disgust, we've got a tea plate with some dried valerian root powder on, you know, we've got a herb garden down. But, and I'm not saying like, you know, you've got to offer your cat botanical remedies. What I'm saying is, you know, if you want to give your cat more, you can always give them more. You can always find that information. You can always build on your knowledge.
I agree. And there's two things that yes, I found the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. Yes. When you start to question, it just brings on other questions. Yeah. And the other really important thing is about offering. So if they've got the opportunity to, and I learned that lesson with my dog, actually, in that I used to think he loves coconut oil. Absolutely loves coconut oil.
This is the dog, people, just in case you missed it, for a dog.
So this is, so I would, you know, let him lick the spoon, I stick it on his spoon. Oh, it's great for him, super. And I had a lady come who did like zoopharmacognosy, so she had lots of her little oils, and it was incredible to watch. And I learned so much again about, I don't, you know, it's not about what I think I need to give this dog, it's about what this dog needs. And she laid all these, I said, oh, my loves coconut oil, I'll go straight for the coconut oil, we have that every day. Completely ignored it. He went over to, I think, a little bit of wheat bran oil or something. He also went to St. John's wort, macerated John's wort. Yeah. All right. But he loves coconut oil. Why isn't he? Yeah, and straight away, again, turn it round the other way. Allow your cat to have some of these herbs, grasses, and let them choose. You don't know best all the time. Be the facilitator, be the mum that goes, do you know, let's try a bit of this. Oh, you're not eating that. Okay, fine. Let's try this one, you know, and try and be guided, because they're not trying to piss us off.
No, say it again. For the cheap seats at the back. No, absolutely not. Then, you know, and I'm so glad you said that. And that was with no prompting, people. No. In the Naturally Cats community, no prompt from me. That is absolutely it. They are not doing it to, you know, prove a point, to be obnoxious, to, you know,
Wind you up.
to anger us, to piss us off. Nothing to do with that. They are communicating something. So rather than asking, you know, why are they doing it, ask yourself the question, what are they trying to tell me?
What are they trying to tell me? What do they need?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's as simple as a texture thing.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
that's something I wanted to say about Hug. So we tried some Hug with Leo. We had hits and misses, as I knew we would. And with Hug, because it doesn't have the bone in it, you can, as Vicky said, you can part cook it. So we had a little pot, I think it's one of the pork pots, and he ate it the first day, not the second, not the third. I thought, right, okay, you know, day 3, I don't want to have it open for too long.
no, it's not
So
fresh.
yeah, exactly, not fresh. So I part cooked it. Oh my life. First of all, I'm vegan, and for me it stank my house, but that's because I'm not used to
fresh.
It is fresh, but for me I've got really sensitive sense of smell, and I was so surprised to just smell meat in the house. Of course, I look at Leo and he's like, his little nose, I could see his nostrils flaring. I'm like, interesting. I didn't even get it down on his plate before he was starting to lick it and look for it. So he actually ate it, obviously not boiling hot from the pan, it had cooled slightly. But I love the fact that Hug is like, for the cat food, it can be that transition between wet and raw, you know, because you've got that part cooked option.
Full cook, you know, full cook it. Cook it up in the morning, put it in the fridge, warm it with a little bit of warm water, put it down. Yeah, absolutely. Take it from full cook down to raw, if that's what your aim is.
Yeah.
See what you're, as I say, it does help on that whole texture thing.
Yeah, it did definitely. It surprised me, I think, because I wasn't ready for it, but it was brilliant. It was a great option to, like, because it's not one or the other, you know. I love the fact that it was almost like a halfway house, you know. So for people that are transitioning from wet food to raw, you've got a great option, just like you said, to kind of reduce the cooking time, and eventually, before you know it, they're eating it and it's completely raw. I never forget Nick Thompson, holistic vet, said about when you're trying to transition a cat to raw food, or actually when you're trying to transition a cat dry to wet to raw, you've got to act like a poisoner. And I tell you what, I almost dropped the phone because I was watching it on, I think it was on our Instagram live. Yeah. And I'm like, what on earth is he saying? What are you talking about? Going to be a poisoner? And he said, I love the analogy, you've got to do it so subtly, small changes over a long period of time to let the cat adjust to it. Now that's, in my experience, the majority of cats. Like I said, I have got a couple of clients who were like, oh yeah, 4 days, went from wet to raw.
I think if you've got a kitten, I think if you're dealing with kittens, they're more likely to switch straight away. We find that a lot with kittens, there's a huge success rate immediately. But with your adult cat, they are suspicious. They are self-preservation mode, you know, and that's what the way we think of it is like you're weaning them off heroin. You know, so that's the way we've always the analogy. So you know, you've got to, because they are getting, if they're on a carb high dry product, they are used to getting those sugar rushes. You know, I used to think when if I fed my cat a wet diet, I used to think, oh, he obviously loves the gravy. You know, that's great. And then of course I find out that's where all the concentrated sugars are in the jelly. You know, I wondered why he left, and literally he would live on the jelly between the chunks and leave the chunks dry. Yeah. You know, and I'm like going, oh, why is that? You know, and then you start to look into it. Because that's where all that, and they're on this constant, and then you've got the diabetes. Of course you've got diabetes. They're on this constant up and down, sugar rush, carb high, backwards and forwards, grazing all day, and suddenly you've got a diabetic cat, and you know, and you just find yourself there. You know, it's heartbreaking. Cooking the very best you can, buying expensive food that you think they're enjoying, but they're addicted to it. So you know, it's unraveling that whole. And so I love the analogy of the poisoner, and I say the analogy we had was like you're weaning them off of a drug. Yeah, you know, you're actually starting to try and stabilize their sort of eating behavior. And
you've got to be patient, haven't you? You know, you have got to be patient, and also
be guided by them.
You do, and you've got to give their body chance to adjust. So whether you're going dry to wet to raw, or anywhere in between, you know, the gut biome, the way the body processes the components of the food, you know, the kind of composition, everything. You've got to give the body chance to adjust to that. So you know, if it was me, you know, I couldn't go from eating like, I don't have a particularly fabulous diet, but let's say, you know, eating a salad every day to having a green juice every day, or, you know, eating McDonald's every day to a green juice every day.
It's like when you go on holiday and think, I'm going to have, they do some great smoothies, and I'm going to have a smoothie for breakfast.
Yeah.
Oh my God, do you pay for it?
Yes. Yeah, you know, so like, I'm sure we've all been there. Like, you know, you plan to do something good, and, you know, I've had that situation where I'm like, yep, I'm on a green juice. And all of a sudden my body's like, what are you doing to me? No, thank you. No, thank you very much. And I'm like, okay, I went a little bit too quick there.
Yeah.
Should have gone a little bit slower with my body. And it's the same for our furry friends, everyone. Can you believe it's 8:25? We've been talking for nearly an hour.
Oh my
I know.
God, I'm sorry.
So no, it's been wonderful. And like I said to you, when you and I connected before, I think you and I could talk for hours. So let me just say, has anybody else got any questions before we wrap up? So we've got one more question that was sent to me ahead of time. Let me just find where that is. Hang on a second. Where is my chat? Here we go. So another question that was sent to us was, will Hug be creating or offering game-based products in 2022? My cat has allergies to most of the normal proteins, so we need to feed rabbit and duck. We'd love to use Hug, but sadly the current proteins don't work for our cat.
Yes, I would love to. It's not for the want of trying that we haven't got them already. I would, if anyone can find me a wild rabbit supplier, I would bite their hand off, literally. The issue I've got is that we won't use farmed rabbit. I won't use Chinese rabbit. I won't bring imported rabbit in. It has to be wild rabbit. And there's been a real issue with the rabbit population recently, is that there's been some awful disease that sort of affects their major organs, and then they sort of bleed out. Have you noticed a couple of years ago, we were surrounded by rabbits. I used to be sick of them, be eating everything in my garden, and it was a real like Peter Rabbit, you know.
That's it, Mr. McGregor. Yeah,
Peter Rabbit. I was the guy with the gun. I employed the guys with the gun because I wanted them for my dog and cat food. But then suddenly, and it wasn't because we shot them, the rabbits, you just didn't see them anymore. And I actually don't think the population has got back to where it was sort of 4 or 5 years ago. Plus the fact people aren't going onto the land to shoot rabbits, because that's what I want. It's about humane for me. I only will take headshot wild, and I just can't get hold of them. But because I mean, rabbit was always a hugely popular with cat food. I love game, absolutely love doing a game option. The issue we've got with that is a lot of it is whole bird. So because we don't put bone in our cat food, to try and buy pheasant breast or pigeon or it's really it becomes cost prohibitive. I love duck. I have in the past used a wonderful free range duck farmer in Devon called Queenie Carver. The issue is that he can't give me a regular enough supply, and I went to visit what's the big duck producer? His name's gone out of my head now. It's in all the
wrong person.
Oh God, yeah, you're right. There's a huge duck producer, which is in all of the, you know, you go to Waitrose, you go to Marks and Spencer's, it's their duck that goes in there. So I went up to, well, okay, I'll go and maybe I'll buy their duck. He's going to bug me now, the name, one of your customers, your people will know. And I thought I'm going to go and I'll visit them and see if they're good, because I would visit my suppliers to look at the welfare of the animals. And I'm sure it begins with G. Yeah.
Is it Gressingham
duck? So I went to see them, thinking if it's good enough for Marks and Spencer and Waitrose, it's got to be good enough for my cat food. And unfortunately, they don't do free range duck. The ducks are all in barns, which, to be honest, the barns were huge. They weren't overpopulated. They were beautifully clean. But the biggest issue I had was that those ducks could not put their bottom in water. Ducks' natural desire is to go and sit on a pond. Okay, and they wouldn't allow it. They had water troughs, but they had frames over them, so all the duck could do was get its head in. So, and they're not even, I don't believe they're even RSPCA approved, because the duck can't display its natural behavior. So, you know, for me, it's really hard that I know I could get plentiful. They were killing thousands and thousands of duck a week. There's a plentiful supply of duck there, but I can't justify it with my welfare thing. Whereas I go to Creedy Carver in Devon and I stand there and I watch the ducks come out of the barn at night, race down the field, jump in a pond. You know, and the mallards and the wild duck fly in to join them because it's such a great environment. Wow. So that's the duck I want to use, but I can't get. So I'm hoping that I can pursue it with Creedy, because I get my chicken from them. So they do beautiful free range. So that's it. So for me, if I can find it and it fits our criteria in terms of welfare, absolutely, I'm looking to expand the range. Absolutely, without a doubt. It might be that we go to turkey first. We don't do a turkey.
What about like a venison?
Venison again is really hard to get. If it's super expensive, if you get it free, if you get it on the bone, it's a little bit cheaper. So we use it in our dog food because we're able to use the neck meat and bone, and we do it with a boar, wild boar. But again, because I'm not putting any bone in, it's about getting the right balance of cuts of meat. And unfortunately, again, there's not a huge amount of British. I prefer wild venison because there was an issue with TB in cats. And it was traced back to a foreign venison meat coming into a raw food product. And so I'm really pernickety about the venison I source. It has to be British, and I have to know where I have to trust the person I'm sourcing it through. So again, it's, you know, it's all of those things together, and that balance between what I can offer and making it as appropriate possible. But yes, I'm absolutely desperate to increase the range, definitely.
Thank you for explaining that. I mean, I think your Sarah's commented and said, you know, love your ethics. I agree. You know, I think that the way that you are talking about, you know, it's weird in my head because of my beliefs and my choices, but the way you're talking about the animal welfare and how important that is to you, I commend you for that, because that's not something that, you know, I think some of the big brands you'd even get somebody talking about. So thank you for being so honest and sharing that with us. I really, really appreciate that. Okay, let me just see if we've got any other questions before I wrap us up. Susie says, so pleased to hear you don't use farmed rabbits. Music to my ears. The VHD virus is still active in the wild population.
That's exactly what it is.
Sarah said W ethics. Susie said, I wish how I wish Brexit would go away. I want your food. She's in Ireland.
Is she Northern Ireland or Southern?
Great question, Susie. Are you still here, Northern or Southern? Just while I wait for her to type, we've got one more question, which I've got thoughts on, but I appreciate yours as well. So Dee says, I have a cat with elementary lymphoma. I don't know if you know what that is. I had to Google that the other day. No, I had to Google it. So it's like IBD, like IBS type thing. It's an inflammation of the to do with an inflammation in the gut. She put, I personally don't think it would be a good idea to change him over to raw. I read that cats with immunity issues should not have raw. So I've also heard that, and I have to say that I don't agree with that. You know, I think that, you know, a raw food diet is their natural diet, but you've got to consider the stress on changing the diet for a cat.
You know, again, it goes back to raw isn't right for every situation. And another one of the reasons why we created a product we can cook for dog and cat is because there are more and more dogs getting cancer. Now, if they're on a chemo treatment, and what have you, then actually introducing a raw product with them is the same issue as, you know, it would be in yourself. So for immune compromised issues, again, what you would do is you'd cook our food, and you'd only serve it cooked. So it's it's about this scale of what is appropriate. So, you know, and I would absolutely say immune compromise, you want to be as natural as possible. And actually the means of cooking the food makes it it sort of starts obviously to break that. It makes it slightly easier on the digestion. The digestion doesn't have to work so hard. So I would absolutely go for as natural as possible, but I would cook it. Absolutely. Now we have a health team as well. So, you know, any questions like that, any specific queries about is the food right or wrong, or should I cook or not cook? Actually, if the food isn't right for a certain health condition, we would absolutely tell you.
So Dee said that basically, so thank you, that it's bowel cancer. unfortunately the cat's got a very short lifespan, and yeah, he's been immune compromised, he's been on chemotherapy. So I mean, like for me, I would suggest, you know, offering things like spirulina and barley grass. They're a massive immune boost, you know, alongside the food.
And to be honest, if you know, and we've had these terrible conversations time and time again, where people do, sometimes the motivation for changing your dog or your cat's food is health, and sometimes you know, it's at a point where you know, there's a short lifespan, and do you know what, it's about what are they going to enjoy, what's going to give them pleasure, and what's not going to put them in, leave them in pain. And you know, if it was my cat and you know there was a short lifespan and I just want a quality of life, I would be looking for a food that they just love, that
absolutely
that part of that issue isn't hunger or pain. It's about creating the nicest possible you know, situation. But yeah, as I say, for cancers, absolutely we would suggest you cook our food.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with you. I think if you've got that kind of diagnosis, you know, you need to look at what's your priority, you know, comfort, care, and lots of love, and whatever format that comes needs to be the priority.
You know, and if all they'll eat is a cheese sandwich, that's what I'd be feeding.
Quite, I'm right there with you actually. Yeah. Susie says she's in South Island.
Oh yeah, that is an issue.
Okay, so
unless there's a shop, maybe I might even get to a shop.
She could, like, I was going to say, actually, this is a great segue. So tell people how they can contact you. So if they've got questions, if they want to talk to you about, you know, anything that we've discussed or anything like that, where can they find more about Hug and about you?
Obviously, we've got the website, hugpetfood.co.uk. If you have specific questions or issues about your cat, it's great if you email in at hello@, then what we can do is make sure that someone in the health team gets to see that. We can arrange a phone call at a convenient time for you to chat through the issues and look at what we've got. So yeah.
What email is that, Vicky?
hello@hugpetfood.co.uk.
Okay, lovely. Carry on. Yeah.
So there's that. There's also, if you are on the website, there's an online chat, and when we're there, it allows you to put your email in and your query, and then we'll get back to you. If we're shut, we'll get back to you when we're next open as well. So you can go on a live chat thing, just put your details in your query as well, and that will come through to us sort of tomorrow morning. But we absolutely love to chat. So by all means, pick up the phone and give us a call as well. But we are a very small team, so you just might find that it's engaged or it goes well. So in the next instance, do email and we will get back to you. But we love to talk.
You're like me. I love to engage with people in my community. You know, people
she says an hour in, we love to talk. Yeah.
I wonder why people think that when we've been live for over an hour. Indeed. So you're also on Facebook and Instagram as well. So I've put I've tagged you on Facebook, but obviously I can't do that via here, but they're also on Instagram. Thank you first of all to everyone that has joined us live. It has been really great to have that interaction, to be able to answer your questions, because I know that Vicky and I share a passion, and it's not just cats. It's also about supporting. It is about supporting, you know, you cat mums and dads with whatever it is that you're going through. And if we can support from Vicky's perspective with nutrition, or mine with advice, that's what we're here. So thank you to everyone that's joined us. And if you're catching this on replay, if you've got any questions, either tag Hug Pet Food or tag me, and we'll make sure that we're trying to answer your questions. Thank you to you beautiful woman, for coming to join me and for sharing a bit about your story. I'm not going to forget now, whenever we email or talk, I'm just going to have this vision of Adam Ant and a cat next to it. So thank you for sharing with us your story and, you know, your approach to kind of our animals, because again, I think that it's really important for people to realize that we are all doing the best we can, and that is enough in any given moment. And that there are people that are here to support us in whichever way that may be, but also that, you know, our cats are all unique and individuals. And if we take the time to listen to them, whether it's about nutrition or remedies or toys and treats or whatever it may be, they'll be able to give us the answer. We've just got to take the time. So thank you for taking the time, Vicky. I've really, really enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed it. And I hope maybe we can do another one in a few months' time as well. That'd be great.
Definitely.
So I will let you get back to your evening. Thank you ever so much, my love.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to meet some of your guys as well.
Indeed, it's been an absolute blast. Everyone's saying thank you. It's been great. Lots of loves, lots of little thumbs and hearts as well. So thank you to everyone. I'm going to push the stop button, and I will see you all soon. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.